Hello year ones, ready for the next instalment of the Enchanted Wood. If you remember from the previous chapter, Moonface, Silky, Saucepan and the children had gone to see Mr. Boom Boom in order to get out of the land of toys. And they managed to escape because they wanted to put Silky on top of the Christmas tree, didn't they? For Santa Claus. So we're going to find out what happened next. So this is chapter 25 in Santa Claus's castle. Joe got to the car first. "Quick," he cried. "I can hear Boom Boom coming. He must have got free." So he had. He appeared at the door of his peculiar house and they saw that he had freed himself by cutting his beard short. He did look strange. The toy rabbit revved up his car and it shot off almost before Saucepan was safely in. A kettle flew clanging down the road and Saucepan groaned. "Well, thank goodness that kettle's gone," said Joe. "It can't stick into me again." "Oh dear, I feel I want to turn head over heels." "Well, you can't," said Moonface firmly, "unless you want to be caught by the Boom Boom fellow. Here, Saucepan, hang on to Joe and stop him turning head over heels in the car." It was difficult to stop him, but they managed it. After they had gone a good way, the rabbit stopped the car for a talk and Joe took the chance of turning about a dozen somersaults. "You know, I think you should go to the land of Santa Claus," said the rabbit. "I do, really. Not to give him Silky, of course. That would never do. But to tell him you aren't toys and to ask him if he can stop you being what you're not." "That's a bit muddling," said Moonface, trying to work it out. "Yes, it seems a good idea. After all, he deals in toys, doesn't he? He must know them very well. He'll be able to tell we're not real toys and might be able to help us." "We know he's kind," said Silky. "He's so fond of children." "Let's go to him." "How can we get there though? This land may stop at the top of the faraway tree for some time and the land of Santa Claus may not be the next one to arrive." "That's true enough," said the rabbit. "Actually, the next land on the timetable is the land of squalls, which doesn't sound too good. But I'll tell you what I can do for you." "What?" asked Joe. "I can drive you to the next station and put you on a train for the land of Santa Claus," said the toy rabbit. "I happen to notice that some trains there do go to his land. What about it, friends?" "A very good idea," said everyone, and off they went. They came to a funny little station after a while and they all got out. "I wish you could stay in my land forever, Silky doll," said the rabbit to Silky. "You really are the prettiest thing I ever saw. But there, you'd be unhappy, and I couldn't bear that." "I'll write to you," said Silky. "Will you really?" said the rabbit. "Do you know, I've never had a letter in my life. It would make me feel important. Look, there's a train now." "Wow, this train's going to the land of Santa Claus. What a bit of luck," cried Moonface. "Goodbye, rabbit. You really have been a good friend. I'll write to you." There's the train that's just come into the station. "My goodness, fancy me getting 2 letters," said the delighted rabbit. "We'll all write," said Joe, shaking his furry hand warmly. "Goodbye. It's been lovely meeting you." Silky gave him a kiss and he nearly cried for joy. "I've never been kissed before," he said. "Never. A kiss and letters. My goodness, I am a lucky rabbit." They all climbed into the train and waved goodbye. "Nice fellow, that rabbit," said Joe. "Well, we're off again. I wonder how far it is." It was quite a long way and they all fell asleep. A porter woke them up at last. "Hey, you! Don't you want to get out here?" he said. "This is where toys usually get out." They scrambled out because the station board said, "Get out here for the castle of Santa Claus. Just in time, said Joe, yawning. Oh, here I go, turning head over heels again. There's the castle, look, said Beth, pointing to a magnificent castle with many towers rising high on a hill nearby. And goodness, look at the snow. Anyone would think it was winter here. Oh, it always is, said the porter. It wouldn't be much good for sleighs, would it, if there wasn't snow? Is Santa Claus expecting you? His sleigh usually meets the train in case there are any visitors for him. Is that it down there? Asked Moonface, pointing down into the snowy station yard. A sleigh was there with 4 lovely reindeer, whose bells jingled as they moved restlessly. A small red pixie held the reins. Yes, that's the sleigh. Better go and get in it, said the porter. He stared hard at Silky. Goodness, isn't that a pretty doll? I bet Santa Claus will want her for his own Christmas tree. They went to the sleigh and got into it. To Santa Claus, please, said Joe, and off they went, gliding smoothly over the snow, drawn by the 4 eager reindeer. They arrived at the castle. They felt rather nervous when they saw how big and grand it was. They stood at an enormous door, carved with all kinds of toys, and rang a great bell. The door swung open. Please come in, said a teddy bear, dressed like a footman. Santa Claus will see you in a few minutes. They went into a big hall and then into a great room where many little pixies and goblins were at work. You might like to look around while you're waiting, said the bear footman. You'll see the pixies painting the dolls' houses and the goblins putting growls into us bears. And you'll see how the somersaults are put into the clockwork clowns. I don't want to see that, said Joe, feeling at once that he wanted to go head over heels. He turned a few and then stood up again. What are those pixies doing over there? He said. Putting the hum into tops, said the footman. But don't go too near. One of the hums might get into you by mistake. And that's such a nuisance, you know. They stood at a safe distance watching. It was very interesting indeed. So many things were going on. There was so much to see and hear that they almost forgot they were toys themselves. How's your growl, bear? Said a little pixie, running up to Moonface. He pressed him in the middle and Moonface growled deeply. Grrr. Leave me alone. I don't like people doing that. Grrr. Look! Oh, look! Isn't that Santa Claus himself? Cried Beth suddenly as a big man came into the room dressed in bright red. He wore a hood trimmed with white and his jolly face had eyes that twinkled brightly. Yes, it's Santa Claus, cried Joe. Santa Claus heard him and came over at once. He looked in surprise at Silky. Why, he said, where did you come from? You weren't made in my castle by pixies and goblins. You are the loveliest doll I've ever seen. I've a good mind to keep you for myself and put you at the very top of my own big Christmas tree. No, no, please not, said Silky. Santa Claus looked down at the others. He seemed puzzled. Where do you all come from? He said. I am quite sure I have never had any toys made like you. The rabbit, dressed up in kettles and saucepans, for instance, and this funny little bear. He doesn't seem like a proper teddy. We're not proper toys, said Beth. Santa Claus, we got turned into toys in the fort of the toy soldiers. I'm a little girl, really. And I'm Moonface, who lives at the top of the faraway tree, said Moonface. What? The famous Moonface who has a slippery slip in his room going down the tree from the top to the bottom? Cried Santa Claus. My goodness, I've often wanted to see that. Do you think I'm too fat to go down it? No, I don't think so, said Moonface, looking at him. I could give you 2 cushions to sit on instead of 1. If you'd like to come now, you can go up and down the faraway tree as often as you like. We'll haul you up in a washing basket every time you arrive at the bottom, and you can slide down again from the top. Let's go now, said Santa Claus in delight. Well, to think I'm meeting the famous Moonface at last. And I suppose this lovely doll is Silky, the fairy. And, of course, this is the old saucepan man. But how do you know about us? Asked Moonface, astonished. Oh, I've heard about you from the children, said Santa Claus. They keep asking me for books about you to go into their Christmas stockings. And they looked so exciting that I read them all. I did want to meet you. Well, wasn't that a bit of luck? Santa Claus called his sleigh and they all got in. To the top of the faraway tree, commanded Santa Claus, and away they went. Can you see the sleigh all along here with the reindeer, and they're all inside it? It didn't take very long. In quite a little while, the sleigh landed on a broad bough near the top of the tree, and they all got out. My room is just a bit higher up, said Moonface, and led the way. They were soon in his little round room. He pointed to the curious hole in the middle of the floor. There you are, he said. That's the slippery slip. It goes round and round from top to bottom of the tree, and you fly out of the trapdoor at the bottom and land on a soft cushion of moss. Splendid, said Santa Claus. Will somebody else go first, please? Goodness, it's exactly the same as I read about in the books. Do you think you could just change us back to our ordinary selves? Asked Joe, afraid that in his excitement, Santa Claus might forget to do what they so badly wanted. I feel as if I'm going to somersault again, and I don't want to turn head over heels all the way down the slippery slip. Change you back? Yes, of course, it's easy, said Santa Claus. The slippery slip is just the right place for a spell. Shut your eyes, please. They all shut their eyes. Santa Claus touched each one gently, chanting a curious little song. Go in as you are, come out as you were. Go in as you are, come out as you were. They opened their eyes. Moonface got a cushion and pulled Beth onto it. He gave her a tremendous push, and she shot down the slippery slip at top speed, round and round, and then out she flew through the trapdoor at the bottom and landed on a tuft of moss. Oh, she said, breathless. Oh, I'm myself again. I'm not a stiff-jointed doll any longer, and I can shut and open my eyes properly. She got up, and out of the trapdoor flew Joe. Joe, you're all right again. You're you, cried Beth in delight. And here comes Silky. She's not a doll anymore. And here's Franny. She's all right too. Look out, here's the old saucepan man. Yippee, he's back to normal. And he's lost his floppy ears, said Silky. I'm rather sorry. I liked him with those long ears. Good old saucepan. And then, whoosh! The trapdoor shot open with a bang, and out sailed Santa Claus, his hood on the back of his head. Bump! He went onto the cushion of moss and sat there, panting and full of delight. What a thrill! What a thrill! Better than anything I've got in my castle. Look out! Here comes Moonface! Cried Joe, and out came Moonface. No longer a fat teddy bear, but his own beaming self once more. I'd like to do that again, said Santa Claus, standing up. How did you say we got back to the top of the tree? In a basket? Yes, said Joe, but if you don't mind, we won't come with the others. You see, our mother will be wondering about us, so we'd better say goodbye and thank you very much." "Goodbye. See you next Christmas," said Santa Claus. "I'll bring you something extra nice. Ah, here comes the basket. Let down a rope." Do we get in? The last thing that Joe, Beth and Franny saw was Santa Claus in the big basket being pulled slowly up by all the squirrels at the top of the tree. Moonface and Silky and Saucepan were with him, leaning over the edge of the basket, waving to them. "Well, I suppose dear old Santa Claus will be going down that slippery slip till it's dark," said Joe. "Oh dear, surely I'm not going to turn head over heels again. I feel just like it." "Oh, you'll soon get out of the habit," said Beth. "I still feel as if I want to walk stiffly like a doll." "Goodness, wasn't that an adventure?" "We'll never have a better one," said Franny. "Oh yes you will, Franny, Beth and Joe. You just wait and see." Oh, the next chapter's a good one. It's one of my favourites. So I'm going to go and get a cup of tea and I'll be back in a minute for the next chapter. Don't go anywhere. Okay, I'm back. Are you ready for the next chapter? I've got a different dog now. Luna Dog doesn't normally sit on my lap. It's usually Poppy. But Luna's decided to join me today. So that's nice. So the next chapter is chapter 26. The Army of Red Goblins. It's difficult to say that word. One day, Mother said that since she had to be out for the whole day, she would prefer if the children asked the old Saucepan Man to come and stay with them and bring any other 2 friends they had made. "Good," said Joe. "We'll ask Moonface and Silky." Beth wrote a note and gave it to the little white goat to take to Moonface. The white goat was a wonderful creature. It gave the most delicious milk. It ran errands, and if any of the hens got out, it found them and drove them back. It was most useful. The goat took the note in its mouth and ran off to the enchanted wood. It came to the faraway tree and bleated to the red squirrel who peeped out from his hole low down in the trunk. The squirrel took the note and bounded up to Moonface with it. Moonface was delighted and shouted down to Silky, who came up and read it. "We'll ask the old Saucepan Man as soon as Mr. What's-his-name is asleep," said Moonface. The children haven't asked What's-his-name, so Saucepan will have to creep down the tree with us without telling him. They sent a note back by the little goat saying that they would arrive at 3 o'clock that afternoon. The children were excited. Mother was preparing to leave and the girls began to make the cottage look pretty with jars of flowers. Beth baked some chocolate cakes and Franny made some toffee. Joe made up some sandwiches. "We'll have a wonderful time," he said. "I hope the Saucepan Man won't be too deaf this afternoon." By 3 o'clock, everything was ready. The children were neat and clean. The table looked fine with its sandwiches, cakes and toffee. Beth went to the gate to look for their visitors. She couldn't see them coming down the lane. "They are late," she called to the others. "I expect the Saucepan Man has got tangled up with his saucepans or something." 3:30 came and no visitors. The children were rather disappointed. "Perhaps Moonface read my letter wrongly and thought it was 4 o'clock, said Beth. But when 4 o'clock came and still no Moonface, Silky or Saucepan Man arrived, they got really worried. "I do hope nothing has happened," said Beth, feeling upset. "There's all our nice food and nobody to eat it." "We'll wait a bit longer, then we'll eat our share," said Joe. So when 5 o'clock came and nobody had arrived, the children sadly ate half of the food themselves. "Something's happened," said Joe gloomily. "Oh dear, what do you think it is?" said Beth, alarmed. "Could we go and see?" "No," said Joe, "not now. Anyway, Mother will be back soon. We'd better go tonight. The rope is let down the tree then for us to pull ourselves up, and it won't take long to climb up. We really must find out what's wrong, said Beth, clearing the plates away. We'll take their share of the food with us. So that night, when it was quite dark, the three children slipped out of bed, dressed, and crept out of the back door. They took a lantern that Joe had found, for there was no moon that night. Joe swung it in front of him, and they could see where to walk. Down the dark lane they went, over the ditch and into the enchanted wood. The trees were whispering very loudly together tonight. Wisha, wisha, wisha. Oh, how I wish I knew what they were saying, said Franny. Come on, said Joe. Better not be too long, Franny. We want to be back by daylight. They made their way through the dark wood. As there was no moon, there were no fairy folk about at all that night. The children soon came to the faraway tree and looked for the rope. But there was no rope at all this time, and they had to begin to climb up as usual, holding on to the boughs and branches carefully, for it was very difficult to see. Before they got farther than 2 branches up, a strange thing happened. Someone caught hold of Joe's shoulder and pushed him roughly down. Joe fell, caught hard hold of the lowest branch, and saved himself just in time. Who did that? He cried angrily. He undid his lantern from his belt, where he had put it whilst climbing, and flashed it up to the tree, calling to Beth and Franny to go no further. And standing grinning in the lower branches of the tree were 4 red goblins, with pointed ears, wide mouths, and wicked little eyes. No one is allowed to come up the tree now, said one of the goblins, and no one is allowed to come down either. But why not? Asked Joe, astonished. Because it's our tree now. Your tree? What nonsense, said Joe. We've come to see our friends who live in the tree. Let us pass. No, said the goblins, and they grinned widely. You can't come up. It's no good, said a tiny voice beside Joe. The goblins have taken everyone prisoner in the tree. If you go up there, they'll only push you down or take you prisoners too. Joe flashed his lantern downwards, and the children saw that it was the little red squirrel speaking, the one who looked after the cushions for Moonface. Hello, said Joe. Do tell me what's happened. I can't understand it. Oh, it's easy enough to understand, said the squirrel. The land of the red goblins came to the top of the faraway tree. The goblins found a hole that leads down through the clouds and poured down it. They took everyone prisoner. Moonface and everyone else are locked up in their houses in the tree trunk. I can tell you, Mr. What's-his-name and the angry pixie have nearly battered their doors down in rage. But why have the goblins locked them up? Asked Beth in surprise. Well, they want some magic spells that the tree dwellers know, said the squirrel. They are going to keep them all locked up till they tell the spells. Isn't it dreadful? Oh dear, said Franny. Whatever can we do to help them? I don't know, said the squirrel sadly. If only you could get up to them, you might be able to make some plan. But the goblins won't let anyone up the tree. Wisha, 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 whispered the trees loudly. You know, I can't help feeling that the trees want to tell us something tonight, said Beth suddenly. I always feel that they are whispering secrets to one another, but tonight I feel that they want to tell them to us. I shouldn't be surprised, said the squirrel. The faraway tree is king of the wood, and now that trouble has come to it, all the other trees are angry. Perhaps they want to help us. Wisha, 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 said the trees loudly. Put your arms around a tree trunk and press your left ear to the tree, said the squirrel suddenly. I have heard it said that that is the only way to hear a tree's words. I wonder if that's true. Each of the children found a small tree. They put their arms round the trunks and pressed their left ears to the trees. And then they could quite clearly hear what the trees were whispering. Help the faraway tree dwellers, the leaves whispered. Help them. But how can we? Whispered back the children eagerly. Tell us. Go up the slippery slip, said the trees in their leafy voices. Go through the trapdoor and up the slippery slip. Cried the children all at once. Of course. Why didn't we think of it ourselves? Shh, said the squirrel in alarm. Don't let the goblins hear you. What did the trees say? They said we were to go through the trapdoor and up the slippery slip, said Joe in a low voice. We can get right up to Moonface's then. It's a wonderful idea. Come on then, said Beth, and the three of them ran to the faraway tree and felt about for the little trapdoor. Another adventure. Oh my goodness, are they going to be able to save Moonface and Silky and all the other faraway tree folk from the red goblins? You're going to have to wait until Monday to find out. Okay, there's questions on the website as normal. Enjoy, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye for now.